sorry, we're making a video so that for people who can't come, we can just post that. So, okay. So we'll just start with some brief introductions of ourselves, just so you guys know where we come from and what our background is. There we go. So my name is Elizabeth Liam, and I am the Director of Operations at the Children's World School. And just a little bit about me, I grew up in Connecticut, and I went to school in South Carolina, and then I moved out here with a program called Teach for America. So through Teach for America, I ended up teaching in Denver Public Schools for 8 years, and I taught lower elementary, so kindergarten, first, second. And in that time in the classroom, I really developed a huge love for watching children learn, and I just realized that children are like sponges, and teaching them something felt like the most powerful thing in the world. So while I was teaching, I got my master's degree as a reading specialist from Regis University. And so that's a little bit more about my background in the classroom, but the last 2 years I have been a stay-at-home mom. And so I think a lot of our mission with this program has come from my own experiences as a mom in this area. And our girls are only 18 months apart, so when my second daughter was born, I kind of realized that, oh, I wish there was somewhere that my older daughter could go for just a couple mornings a week to be hanging out with other kids, to be a little bit socialized, to learn to take directions from another adult. And so I think that that was where the birth of this program really came from. For me, is for my own need and my own desire to have something that where a young toddler could be. So I'm really excited to build a successful program where we can have parents as part of our community as well as the kids. I think parenting young children isn't easy, and it can be very lonely and isolating. So being a place where we can have community events, we can have our families involved, and value our parents as the child's first teacher. And then this is my mom.
Hi. My name is Monica Summer, and share a little bit about myself. I have a degree in elementary ed, and I specialized in early childhood. I moved here about a year ago and realized that there was a greater need for different type of early childhood program. I think the state has grown quite rapidly, and to Beth's point, we need a program that involves the whole family and provides a great, play-based environment for the children. I have about 40 years of experience, and in that experience, I did some homeschooling, I did some Montessori school, I did some public school, and then I spent about 25 years at a private school. And that school, I was a teacher for 15, and I became the director for 10. So in that time frame while I was there, I coached, I taught teachers, I coached teachers, I did some parent support, I did program development, I did some parenting classes, but my goal was to create successful early childhood environments for the teachers and the parents. That school had about 65 children every day. It had 2-year-olds to 5-year-olds, which is what Beth and I intend to do, and about 85 families a year. So very similar to what we're hoping to do. So I had that great experience. It too was a play-based school, and one of my greatest achievements there was to create these amazing playgrounds. So we had 2 huge playgrounds that we channeled into the woods. So that's part of what Beth and I really want to do, is incorporate a nature base to our playgrounds and let the children be outside a lot and enjoy this amazing state where people are very, very active and get the kids outside. The other project that I did at that school that we'll incorporate here eventually too is a big bike park. I did a big bike park that 20 kids could be outside riding bikes at the same time, so that was pretty exciting. But to Beth's point, one of the greatest goals, and when I first started early childhood, was developing a relationship with the families, because I can't get to know your child unless I know you. You're going to get to know us so that we can know your child better, and that we can create a better program for all these little people. Being a community. Each of you knowing the children in your child's class will make a difference, so we'll foster all of that. And then for me, it's just a dream come true to be able to work with my amazing daughter and start a school. It's what I wanted to do from when I first started. So all that said, we're going on to what is our school philosophy. Our school philosophy is a play-based education, providing a play-based education. an educational experience that introduces children to their community and to the world around them. We will look at each child with consideration of where they are developmentally. So that's a beautiful privilege that we'll have. And with each individual learning style. We'll support families, we'll make accommodations to unique needs. We'll nurture and support that growth so it allows for independent thinking, letting them think and act the way they want to help them explore safely. With guidance and encouragement, it's really important for us to embrace their social development, so that they can have conversations, they can work through problem solving and become creative thinkers. Incorporating that outdoor environment in all of our thinking. A great emphasis will be placed on experiential learning, and our play-based approach will create a framework for them to discover the world around them. So that's our basic idea of what our school philosophy is. And then we talk about the foundation of play-based learning. There is tons of research about play-based learning and its positive effects on early child learning and development. Play is healthy, of course. It's an essential part of childhood. We have to incorporate this. In general, research shows these very strong links of creative play in language, physical, cognitive, and social development. It's part of how they learn. You think about an infant who's playing, they're learning through their senses, and that's what our littlest guys will be doing. We assist in that development. We just assist and provide them that sensory experience. And then when we have toddlers, they start to imitate, they start to having those experiences with their families. So they're just busting out in the world. And then we get our 4-year-olds that's who we really want to, foster those friendships and how they do that, how they incorporate, how they play together, how they start figuring out the rest of the world around them. Playing with their peers is key. They come in and they totally forget they're part of your family. They get in that classroom and they're so excited. So we're excited to do that with them. Play learning happens in an environment where children are supported and their learning is extended. So anything they do, we're watching, we're observing, and then we take it to the next level. And the discovery is so imperative for their learning, their growth, their development. So as they explore, we think about ourselves making a cake. You're making a cake and you're sort of curious. What if I put chocolate chips in it? You're making a cake. What if I put coconut in it? What if I try not to put vegetable oil and I put something else? You're playing, you're fooling around with something to perfect it to what you want. So that's kind of what we're doing with our play-based learning here, is play-based learning is facilitated by the teachers. So we're watching and then we're supporting them and what their ideas are. And kind of we have to figure out where their discovery is heading and what direction they're going. So intentional teaching, intentional language are the tools we're using for a play-based foundation. So what does play-based learning look like? Because now people are asking, what do you mean when you say play-based learning? What is happening? So there's two forms of this. There's free play and there's guided play. So in free play, it's a voluntary, unstructured, initiated play by your child. When your child engages in free play, they're pretending, they're doing dramatic play, they're learning some self-regulation. Your child learns how to problem solve, how to cope with their own negative emotions, kind of control their behavior because it's their choice. This is their choice, this free play. So we think about Ruby right now, doing what she's doing. She's over here playing with some plastic blocks, sort of figuring out where do they go, how do they fit, how do I move them, what can I do with them. She's figuring this out. This could last forever, it could last a couple of minutes. So the next day the teacher looks at this, she takes it to another level. Maybe she puts some characters in there, maybe she drops some word cards in there, and then facilitates it, comes over and talks about the colors or the size, or what can we do with it? Can we stack them to build a tower? This was her choice, so we're going to jump into her play to teach her what our goals might be. And so then there's guided play. Guided play is when you play the hokey pokey, or what I was telling Beth and Corey that I watched my beautiful granddaughter, their daughter, Today, all of a sudden she turned and she's singing to this little teeny tiny drum and she's going, head, shoulders, knees and toes, head, shoulders, knees and toes. That is guided play. Someone taught her head, shoulders, knees and toes so she'd learn her body parts, but then she extended it to this giraffe who, it's just her play. So she's carried it to another level. So maybe following up the next day, we'll line up a couple of animals and there'll be different shapes and sizes, different body parts on those animals so we can extend it to more learning. That's what free play is. That's what guided play is. That's what a play-based environment is, where we're taking the child's interests and extending it. When your child is in guided play, they're more likely to learn a lot more words, they're more likely to learn about math and science and language. Think about if your child was planting a garden box with a teacher. So we'd be learning a little science, we'd be learning about colors, we'd be learning about what you need to have something grow, and then you would take what they want to grow. You'd see what their curiosity was. Maybe they're most curious about the dirt or the worms or whatever that might be, but that is where we're taking that learning. Then outdoors is just a wide open thing. Beth's going to talk about that a little bit, what we're going to do with our plans. But when a child walks out a door, they all of a sudden are out there and they are uninhibited. They are freer. So we as teachers get to embrace that. You have a child who inside might be very quiet, outside they might be very talkative. So you're watching that, you're observing that. We take advantage of that. And with the play-based learning, the child becomes their own teacher, their own leader of their play. So they're leading the play and we are the support system in the play. So that's another piece of what play-based learning is. During that play, the child's attention is drawn to different aspects of the environment. They're more likely to learn if they choose it. So you think about yourself and your given activities, whether you are a skier or a biker, or you like to read or play computer games, you're more likely to learn more about your hobby because you like it. And that's what we're doing with the kids, is that we're picking up on that. So some of the existing games like bingo and memory games, those kinds of games, we have to find ways to draw them into those games, but then they come up with their own games. And we're thinking, wow, what are the rules to that game? You're watching them and there's all these rules and a kid can jump in, a kid can jump out on the playground or in the classroom, they're doing something. That is where true creativity happens, is when we allow them that freedom, more freedom to play, then we get that great creativity in a child. Think about when children are playing and they have imaginary objects and they transform a chain into a snake. And when a child takes a doll and it becomes a sibling, or they take a bottle and that's empty and they're feeding it, they are pretending and making things up, and it's extended play. At school they'll have all of this opportunity, but play is educational discovery. It's where that first learning happens. So that's a little bit about what we're doing with our play-based environment. Okay, so now we're talking, I wanted to share.
So as an elementary school teacher, one thing I saw was that recess was an unbelievably stressful time. If you remember even from yourself in elementary school, recess was a very stressful time. Usually because you're not observed as closely, you're allowed to kind of get away with things that maybe wouldn't slide inside. So one thing that we wanted to establish when we were coming up with some of our philosophies for the school was that outdoor play for us at the Children's World School will be an extension of the classroom. So what that means is when children are outside, your teachers aren't going to be sitting back talking to the other teachers. They're going to be engaging with the kids just the same as they would be when they're in the classroom. So one thing that is really important is the elements that we'll have outside that will help encourage this. So we're going to try to mimic a lot of the elements that we have inside. Dramatic play area. We're going to have teepees and baby dolls that are able to be outside for kids to play with. We're going to have sandboxes, water tables. We're going to even have a mud kitchen with tables and chairs where kids can sit, and if if that's what they're into outside, inside is playing kitchen, then they're gonna love it even more when there's mud involved. And then we'll also have elements of block play outside. So we're going to have a hard surface with a bunch of aspen trees that have been cut into chunks, where kids can build with those natural elements, and also what's called loose parts. So like, we'll have a bin full of pine cones or a bin full of twigs, and then they can add to whatever structure they're creating. So I think that that's one thing that's really important to us, is that time outside, and also along with that, we kind of prescribe the idea that there's no bad weather, just bad gear. So even for our little ones, we will take the time to put on their hats and their mittens and their rain boots if needed, or snow boots, and we will be outside unless it is too cold. So for us in Colorado, most days we are able to be outside. Most days the sun is shining and it's not below 20 degrees. So most days we will get those kids outside, which is a commitment for us as the teachers, just that we will be outside engaging with those kids. And for you, that means when you come to pick them up, you know that they haven't been just inside for 3 hours. They've been outside playing, engaging in other ways.
And dirty.
And dirty, and they might be dirty, so, but they will have fun. So the next thing that I wanted to kind of dive into briefly is a little bit about what it means to be have a global perspective. That's something that's part of our mission, is that we're a play-based preschool with a global perspective. So what that means for your children and our students is that as part of our curriculum, we'll have different countries or cultures that we're focusing on throughout the year. And that will be in every class. Even our littlest koala bears will have countries that they're studying. So what that might look like is if we were studying the country of Japan, our littlest koalas might hear the teacher counting in Japanese, and maybe they have textiles or fabrics that they're able to engage with and just feel that sort of sensory play. For our next age group up, that's our pandas, they might look at some examples of silk screen printing and what that looks like and what they think about the colors or the designs. And then they might try their own version of silk screen printing. For our polar bears, they might have some traditional Japanese costumes in their dress-up area that they can try on and play with during that month of study. And maybe they'll try some sushi at snack or make sushi themselves at snack. For our oldest group, which is our brown bears, those are going to be our 4-year-olds, so they'll do a little bit of a deeper dive into our areas of study. So they might be learning about the Japanese Lantern Festival, which is called Toro Nagashi, and maybe what they're doing is they're reading nonfiction books about the Lantern Festival, designing their own lanterns, thinking about people they want to remember as they talk about that festival. So now we'll get into a little bit more of the nitty-gritty, now that we've kind of covered some of our bigger picture philosophy items. So for us, we have one class for each age group. So we've got 4 really big classrooms at our building. So we'll have 4 groups, and we've named them after bears, even though I have a disclaimer that koalas are not bears, they are marsupials, but they're still very cute and they fit with my team. So, but my husband was like, everyone should know that we don't think koalas are bears. So the koalas are our youngest group, and they will need to be 1 by August at the start of school. Our pandas will be 2 by October 1st, and that is where we get into a little bit of a gray area. For starting at our 2-year-olds, we will follow what's considered the traditional school cutoff. So that is October 1st. And you see our other ages also reflect October 1st. And the idea then is that your child is in the correct cohort for when you want them to be going to kindergarten. So I know some parents, we've kind of talked about this, wow, that's a big decision to make right now when my kid's going to go to kindergarten. But it also is something that if you push them ahead, so if they were to be the youngest kid in their cohort, and then we see, oh, they could really use an extra year, then they can stay in the brown bears for another year. That's definitely not a problem for us. Also, just to state, we will be following the state guidelines for a child-to-teacher ratio. Since we are a brand new school, we don't know how many teachers will be in each room yet, just because we don't know how many kids we're going to have enrolled in each group. But there will, of course, be obviously 1 teacher at minimum in each classroom, and ideally, we would love to have 2 teachers in each classroom would be our goal. If we don't want to go to the max on each of our ratios, but we would like to have enough that we could afford to have 2 teachers in each room. So 1 would be a lead and 1 would be an assistant. So now my mom will dive a little bit deeper into what our approach looks like in our classrooms.
When you're looking at this play-based environment, what we're doing, the way in which we're doing a curriculum planning and the way we will do assessment and goal planning for the kids is looking at this whole child piece where we're looking at all of those developmental sections. Social and emotional, language and communication, cognitive and physical and movement. And all of that is the real meat of what we want to look at with them. So in that, using a combination of established methods of developmental guidelines and assessments, our team, meaning our teachers and all of us together, will work for individual goals for the children as well as group and classroom goals. So looking at everybody as an individual, and like I said earlier, looking at learning styles. So in a play-based environment, you can have a drifter who does not love being in the group, but you still want to make sure that she or he gets what you want them to accomplish in the classroom. You could have a very talkative child, you could have a very quiet child. So we are going to try to get to everybody. We do have a goal plan, for each classroom. We'll have a goal plan for each child, but it will have soft edges, but there is a plan. So we'll use the Colorado Early Learning and Developmental Guidelines. We'll use pathway milestones that's supported by the American Academy of Pediatrics. That's really good for our younger set, as well as the CDC milestone trackers. That's very good for our younger set. So there are goals, there are guidelines, but there's no hard edges to that. There's some real flexibility. And like Beth said, it doesn't matter what age group they're in either. So we're going to take them where they're coming and where you want them. And so as I move a little forward, we'll talk about the koalas, and I'm going to give you some examples. So when we look at their social emotional, they're playing a simple play, playing with a doll. We help them extend all of that. Like I was saying before, that's what free play is about, extending it. Wow, is your baby cold? Does she need a blanket? Does your baby need to be changed? So extending whatever they're playing with. They get really excited to see another child, so we want to make sure they know everybody in their class. They know that mommies and daddies come back, so working that social emotional piece with them. Working with language and communication with that first group too is they're pointing to things, so we're going to use a lot of one word, and if they've got the one word, we extend it to 2 or 3 words. We start adding a little more things in that. If they know familiar people or body parts, we keep adding to that language. That first group is so excited to add the language. So the cognitive piece with that first group, it's still there too. We have the goal set, and we're going to work with things like if they're scribbling with markers or crayons, we just keep extending it to bigger paper, different materials, different colors. If they can build a tower with 4 blocks, we're going to try to get them to build a tower with 5, or build with different blocks. Or to Beth's point, when we're out on the playground, we're going to get them stacking those wood chunks. We're going to get them to pile rocks on top of each other. When I was up in Estes Park, there's this great rock shop that I can't wait to go to. I might have to use Corey's truck. But they had really large, colorful rocks from the mountains. And I'm thinking, I want those on the playground. Those are going to be great. But this age group would love them. So the movement and the physical piece with this group, we know that they have to be able to try to pull a toy while they're walking, but we extend that. We're going to do wagons, and we know that we want them kicking a ball, but we'll have a variety of things for them to kick. So we know there's a goal set, and with that goal set, we're going to just figure out where they are. Then we move on to our little pandas. So the pandas are 2, and that social emotional piece is they're copying all the time. There's nothing wrong with that. They're going to copy each other. They're going to copy you. They take turns in games, so we extend that. We come up with more games and more guidelines for them. And their language, they start with those 2 to 4 words. We're going to just extend it. Then we're also going to share with you what they said. So we share it, then you're going to say, oh my gosh, he said this week, and you can't believe it. I was saying this on the phone, and of course that's what he was saying. So we'll do that. And then with directions with this group, we start to get them to follow a couple of directions. We may have one of those children that is an automatic leader and follower and does everything you ask. So we help them become a teacher. They help guide another child. So that's a sort of a motivational piece to take with that language and communication piece. And their cognitive pieces, colors and shapes and doing puzzles and different kinds of puzzles. And you take that and you extend it outside, and we get them into that building area. And we create puzzles outside for them. So there's movement guidelines for that group as well, for that panda group. Standing up on their tiptoes, you know, so there's these guidelines, and we'll come up with fun games so that they can do that. We have a great space outside. Amanda was saying that she drove by. It's a little, it doesn't look so great yet, but it's going to look great. But it has great running space. So we're so excited about that we'll be able to do a lot of things outside. And then our polar bears. Our polar bears, when you start with that social emotional stuff with a 3-year-old, it gets harder because this is when they start realizing they have their own ideas, but they do want to play with this person, but they don't want to play the way that person wants to play. So the social emotional piece is that we want them to love and accept and be a good friend, but also we want them to be able to stand up for themselves and be able to have a voice. We want them to like doing new things. We want them to be able to explore this classroom. We want them to be able to jump in hands first, feet first into something. With language and communication, we want them to know their friends' names. We want them to know their family with singing songs, doing poems, and seeing what comes from them. Usually a child will come in and be able to tell you stories at this age. So, you know, try to keep some journals for them. Cognitively with this group, books are really important at this point that they become independent with books. Remembering parts of stories, a beginning, a middle, and an end, and telling stories. He's awake now. And the movement and the physical piece with this group is that they're climbing well, that they're daring to climb, that they're doing some risk-taking, catching a ball, you know, playing ball. And that's a big piece of our outdoor environment is learning to take some risks and to dare to do some things. So with these little 3-year-olds, their bodies change from the toddle to a preschooler. So they're changing and their muscle structure changes. So that's where we have those guidelines of how to progress, and everybody progresses at their own rate. We won't have the same expectation for everybody at the same time. And then our big brown bears. This is going to be fun. This part is just great because they become strong and independent. They become these kids that want other kids to follow along their idea. Or they want to shut themselves and sequester themselves into a corner and do not touch my towel. So we are fortunate we have these big classrooms that we will be able to have some extended learning where we'll be able to leave some projects up for them. I'm a big fan that if somebody has created a giant Lego village, let's leave it for the next day. You know, let's play with it. If we're outside and we have made 24 mud pies on top of the rocks, let's leave them there. It's okay. So that's a thing that I think Beth and I both feel pretty comfortable about, that letting that extend, you know, that wonderful thing that this age group likes to do, singing and dancing. And if they come to you and they want to change the curriculum for the day or the lesson plan for the day, let's go with it. Let's see, what is that going to look like? They tell stories, they come up with plans. With their language, we're going to really try to extend their language and pull in that international piece, use other languages. It's okay, it's okay. Yay! So telling a story, using proper language, we'll work with that. Using scissors, you know, drawing people, those kinds of things. And then the physical development for this class can be all about play. There's great lists, but we can just play and play and play until we hit some of those guidelines. And then we progress to, do we have another little piece? Oh, yeah, you baby.
So now that we've kind of told you a little bit more about each age group, I'm going to break down like kind of what a day would look like for your child at our school. And we do have schedules prepared for what it would look like for each age group, but I'm going to just kind of give an overview. But I do have those available if you want more specific details about what a day would look like for your child in their specific class. So for the most part, there's 5 elements that every child will experience, whether they're 1 or whether they're 4 in our program. And that would be a morning circle, so you can just kind of see a little example picture. So for our koalas, our littlest ones, that will be pretty quick because they're not going to all want to sit in a group and tell me about their weekend. But it will be a quick little song or maybe a wiggling game or some finger play that we can all engage and connect, and you can check in with each of them before you move on to free play. For the brown bears, that might look like maybe reading a story or telling stories about our days. And then each group will have that free play, like what my mom spoke about earlier, where you have that unstructured time that you can gravitate towards whatever your favorite thing is in the classroom. We also, every age group will have the outdoor play time, and every age group will have snack time. So the snack is something that will be provided in our morning program, so it's 9 to noon, and the snack will be part of the morning. We do feel like snack time is a great time to bring in some of those customs of, oh, you need more water, let me pour some water for you, or can you pass the graham crackers? Sure, I can pass them for you. There's a lot that us as adults innately think about sharing a table with friends, but that's something that needs to be taught, so that is something that we'll facilitate during that snack time. And then the last thing that every group will do is that guided play. So for all of our classes, that will be a sort of center style play time where the teacher might direct a small area, the teacher might be walking around to facilitate some things that we've done before or materials that we've used before, and they're just asking those guiding questions, trying to increase the level of play. So now we're going to get, again, a little bit more into the nitty-gritty. So we do have some different options aside from just our morning program. So our morning program is 9 to noon, and that is for all age groups. And we do have some other options that we would like to add as long as we have enough interest in these. So this is something that's still kind of in discussion, and we want feedback from parents that are enrolling their kids this spring to know that we'll be able to have enough students to do both of these. So the first is an early bird yoga and movement program, and that would be an 8 a.m. drop-off where the children would be in a multi-age group with a certified yoga teacher. And so that would mean that our classroom teachers they can be in their rooms getting their classrooms ready for the day, and our yoga and movement teacher will be leading, again, all ages in some really fun activities to get them set for their day. And then we also have the extended day, which is an after program, if you will, where the children will all stay and they'll eat lunch, and lunch needs to be brought from home. So they'll eat lunch, they'll do a rest. Again, rest will look a little bit different depending on the age. Our youngest, our koalas, will probably all fall asleep. Presumably they'll be pretty wiped after their morning. Whereas our oldest brown bears, they might have a 20-minute rest on their mat where they're just reading or relaxing. I know my oldest daughter's already 3 and she doesn't nap anymore, but still that rest and that downtime is good for the kids before we go back outside to play again. So on those extended days, we will have different themes of each day, and you can choose which days you want to extend. So if your child is maybe enrolled Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Wednesdays are our art day, maybe you want to extend just on Wednesdays so they can have that little bit of extra time for creativity. And that is something that we'll kind of, as we get closer to the year, we'll let you know what the themes are for each day, and you can add those extended days. So obviously we are not in our actual building because we're getting a little bit of work done on our classrooms, but to give you an idea, this is where we are right now, right here on the Hampton frontage road, and we're just down a little bit north on Wadsworth, is where the location of our building is. And we are partnering with the Hope Crossing Church. We're not affiliated with the church, but we like to say we're like friendly renters. Like they've been really excited to have us there. They're really accommodating for us using their space, but we are not part of their church. We're, again, an autonomous organization. And so that's a picture of the church, and again, we'll hopefully be having a lot more events there this spring. We look forward to having an open house. We're going to have some dates where we're painting the classrooms and having families in, and then we hope to have our classrooms all set up by the end of May, so then we can do tours and whatnot over the summer. So moving forward, our registration is open and available now, so all that you need for registration is a one-page registration form that gives us a little bit of information about your child, as well as a $100 registration fee. They are for each individual child, so if you do have more than one child, then each child would have their own form and their own fee. For our enrollment, after you've registered and paid your $100 fee, then your spot is saved for your child, and our enrollment will all happen online. we're using an online parent portal for us just to make our process a little bit more streamlined. And all the forms, such as your health form, your family information form, that will all be submitted through our parent portal so that then we can just have everything online. So we would ideally, once you've registered, we'll send you the information to access the parent portal, and you'll put in all those forms by the start of school. For our tuition,
He's copying you.
oh, perfect, just like what you were saying. For our tuition, we are considered a program, so you'll pay your tuition as a 10-month annual tuition, and you'll pay it in 4 payments, unless of course you want to pay it all at once, and we won't do that. And we do follow the Jeffco school schedule. So again, our 10 months of operation are mid-August to the end of May. So like I said at the beginning, we are really excited to build a community with our families. So something that we're looking forward to between now and the start of the year is having events for both our community and our parents that are our families that are already registered. So we are going to have an open house this spring, and we've also been hosting fairly regular playground meetups, just so that we can continue to get our name out as a new school to more families. So, and when we look at our school year beginning, we will also have more events like that throughout the year, where we're going to have different trainings or events that parents can come to. And on our calendar, you'll see, oh, I forgot to stop turning up the folders. Oh, okay, thanks, Mom. So like you'll see in your folder, we have our calendar already prepared for next year. So you can see on there, we've already blocked out a couple of parent nights, as well as whole school events, which might be, some of the kids might be singing or reciting a poem, and so that would be more of a community-wide event compared to a parent event. So right now, my mom is passing out our folders, and those just have a little bit more information about play-based learning. They have our calendar, which I just spoke of. They have the registration form in there, as well as our tuition matrix, just so you can know what our tuition schedule does look like for each group. So I'll give you guys a minute to look those over.
And there's some papers in the back.
And there's more articles about play-based learning and nature-based play in the back as well.
And everybody should take Play-Doh.
And everyone should take my mom's homemade Play-Doh. So I would say right now that's kind of the conclusion for our presentation, but we do have time for questions. We'd like to. So if there are questions that you wanted to ask out loud to the group, that's great, or